The Dallas Stars beat the Carolina Hurricanes yet again over the weekend. Find out what went wrong as well as what the Hurricanes have in store for this week in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of the day. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On NHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Now, the Carolina Hurricanes took on the Dallas Stars yet again the other night. And yet again, the Carolina Hurricanes took the loss to the Dallas Stars. If I am correct, in the season series, the Dallas Stars have now swept the Hurricanes in the regular season series this year, kind of getting payback from last year because the Hurricanes did that to them last year. And yeah, this was this one was frustrating. Obviously, the Hurricanes 5-game win streak was snapped with this one, and this was also the first game of back-to-back. The second one being Buffalo, which we'll talk about in the next episode. This was the third and last game of their 3-game homestand, and yeah, this is going into this game, I had said, that the Hurricanes were going to be in for a tough test because Dallas had won the previous 2 meetings of the season already. Dallas had been playing them really tough defensively, and a big question, was will Jalen Chatfield be back? He was not, and Dallas had just beaten them a few, at the time, I think, 10 days prior, um, and the Stars were coming off of a 4th straight loss at the time, 4-1 to the Sens, where they looked really bad in that game, and I said that, Dallas would be looking to bounce back, against the Hurricanes, get that win back. Yeah, they had had lost 4 straight at that point, and, you know, they'd want to get a win back, and they'd want to get back in the win column, and, because we are in that second half of the season. Trade deadline is just a few days away at this point. So they were going to be very hungry coming into this game. They had just beaten the Hurricanes a few days prior, so they know they could do it, and I think that was something that the Hurricanes maybe underestimated a little bit. I said, look at, that game against Arizona where, Arizona made that push, I believe, in the second period. You could tell they are hungry and wanting to get the win, but Dallas, being a much better team than Arizona, obviously came out on the winning end of that. And you knew this was going to be a tough game defensively. Both, were shut down in the first period, just 7 shots, not goals. Good Lord. Just 7 shots each in that first. But, Dallas was able to get a goal in the final minutes of that game. Jason Robertson got one off of his own blocked shot. And in the second period, the Hurricanes, came back pretty good. They held the shots to, or they held the Stars to 0 shots in the second for about the first 11 and a half minutes or so, and ended up tying it up in that time period as well. That was his 22nd of the year. So, obviously, congratulations on him. Can't wait for him to hit that 30 goal mark. That's going to be happening over these next few games, we hope. But, one thing that was pretty deflating is, they had held the Stars off so good. But then the Stars' first shot of the second period ended up being a goal. They scored on their first shot of the second period. So that was definitely not ideal. You figure, okay, they had some momentum behind them or what it may be. I don't know. It just is what it is there. And the Hurricanes also took 2 penalties in the final 5 minutes of the second period. That's not ideal. And I definitely, hope that, the Hurricanes, are able to, gosh, avoid stuff like that moving forward. I guess is what I would say because we've seen because that's not them. They for the most I mean, obviously, every team is gonna take penalties in a game, um, but, man, you just look at something like that, and I just feel like, they are, I guess, better than taking penalties like that in the final if things just falling apart. They're better than that, but, obviously, you get into the 3rd period, it ends up just being more of the same, just a really, really tight defensive game. There's just 8 combined shots, through, that entire 3rd period, and Dallas's defense, really came ready to play. They knew exactly what they needed to do to shut down the Hurricanes, and the Canes just they didn't have an answer for it, and this, just kinda goes to prove that they need to go out and get someone that can score goals. And that's not a shot against Aho, who we talked about, just scored his 20th second of the year. It's not a shot against Fetch, against Natchez, against Jarvis, any of these guys that we know have it in them. It's just and you're going to have games like this where teams just shut you down. It's going to happen, plain and simple. But it's just one of those things, man. Like we just keep saying the same thing year after year. They need a true goal scorer. They have so many guys that have that pass first mentality on their roster right now. They need a guy to score goals. That's what they need. Whether or not it happens, I don't know. I keep saying I feel like it will. I feel like it will. But we've gotten to the point where it's just the same thing year after year. I just don't know if they will. Plain and simple. I saw a thing on Twitter yesterday. It was like a cycle of, oh, you know, here's the start of the season, goaltending issue, injury, uh, it's resolved. Someone goes on, a scoring drought. We like our team. We need to get a goal scorer. We like our team. Exit in the playoffs. Summertime. It's just that same thing every year. Obviously, credit to whoever came up with that. I don't remember who you are. Um, but it's just one of those things where it's very frustrating because it's the same thing game after game after game with this team, or this season, excuse me. And, Dallas, again, they shut down the Hurricanes defensively. They had 23 block shots. Ottinger had 20 saves in the game. And obviously, credit to them. It takes a lot to shut down this Hurricanes team because I've said it in the past. They have a whole bunch of guys that can score. And so, to be able, gosh, what game was it? It was one of their most recent wins where they had like 6 different goal scorers. You have a team like that, that's dangerous because okay, you don't have to focus most of your energy on these 1 or 2 guys. You gotta, kind of figure it out. But that wasn't the case in this game. Dallas, was just able to shut down the Hurricanes completely. And obviously, credit to the Hurricanes because they did a good job defensively as well, limiting Dallas to what they were able to do. But Dallas, just took advantage of they just had some better shots and got the puck in the back of the net, and it is what it is. The game's behind us, and it sucks that they did lose the game. They weren't able to even come away with a point, but it's done. And like I said, that season series is done now, also because as I said, def the Stars swept the Hurricanes in the season series, and yeah, that stinks, obviously. But it's gonna happen. Yeah, plain and simple. Um, and yeah, that was the season series there, and it sucks. It does. But the Hurricanes penalty kill. On a positive note, they were able to go 2 for 2 there, or excuse me, 4 for 4 on the penalty kill. So that is obviously good. That's always going to be positive when you can do something like that. Power play went 0 for 2. That's where I got that 2 from. And yeah, definitely just, I really want them to, man, like I said, they just need someone to get out there and score goals. We'll talk about that more in the Buffalo recap episode as well. But I do want to dive into some quotes from this game or from post game, and we will dive into those right after this quick break, folks. Our sponsor once again today is Camino Consulting. You've heard of our online families and couples course and taken advantage of the locked on 25% discount running to the end of the month. But what about the live seminars? In both sport and business, the challenge is differentiating candidates and recruits in an endless battle. Everyone can demonstrate their measurables and qualifications, but we all know it is the intangibles that matter when things are similar. Contact Camino Consulting for their team and management seminars to get a peek behind the curtain and watch your next recruiting class or hiring group become one of the most effective you've ever seen. Both because you've identified the right candidates and because you've learned how to communicate and motivate them in accord with their own preferences. But you aren't in business management or working with a team, we pay referrals. Make some money making your workplace and favorite teams better. Every group works together better at the end of the year, 1 week more than week one. So contact Camino Consulting at caminoconsulting.ca and get on the fast track to understanding. Now, folks, diving back into the quotes from this game against the Dallas Stars. Again, this was a very, very close game. And this is what Brind'amour had to say. He said, quote, "We played hard. We played a great game. When you hold a team like that to 16 shots, I don't know how many scoring chances they had after the first. That's pretty good. They're a good team. They blocked 20 plus shots tonight. That's a good number for them. It was a hard fought game. There wasn't a lot of room, and we didn't find it." End quote. Again, it's a very tight game. And that was something that Jacob Slavin said as well, saying, quote, "It was tight, not a lot of room. Two good high caliber teams that play the game the right way, going at it. Good teams block shots. There were probably a couple opportunities tonight where we could have shot the puck and we didn't. We've got to we've just got to keep getting everything at the net," end quote. And I'm gonna take, one thing there. Brind'amour is right. It's a tight game. Sullivan was right there as well. It's a tight game. But what I want to say pick from here, there were a couple of opportunities tonight where we could have shot the puck and we didn't. That goes back to what I said about the Hurricanes needing a true goal scorer. How many times have we seen this team over the years, over this season, even? They just pass, 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 and don't actually shoot, or they throw in an extra pass or two that they didn't need to do, and they end up not scoring. How many times have we seen that? Way too freaking many. Way too many. Way too many. And it's just getting to the point where how many times can we have stuff like this get said before something actually happens? Before, management goes out and gets a goal scorer, or for someone on the team to just be like, screw it. They're not going to go out and get us someone. I'm going to do it myself. Who's going to be the Thanos to go say, fine, I'll do it myself and put on the Infinity Gauntlet, which is, just a hockey stick that scores a bunch of goals. Who's that going to be? I don't know. Obviously, the obvious answer is Sebastian Aho, but we've gotten to the point where his career that's clearly not, his thing. Obviously, he can go out there and score a bunch of goals, but that's not his thing. He's not going to be Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews, and put up those kinds of goal totals. He's not going to do that. But it's pretty evident that the Hurricanes need to go out and get a goal scorer. And again, we'll touch on that in the Buffalo recap. But Jordan Stahl had this to say, quote, "We might have had one too many penalties. It was hard to get any momentum or any sustained pressure. They're a good team. They make you pay, definitely. We made a couple of mistakes, and it's in the back of your net. You can't make those. That's kind of the game. Trying to come back in this league is tricky, and they played a good game." End quote. Him, talked about mistakes. The Hurricanes had again, 4 penalties, 8 penalty, 8 penalty minutes, and yeah, Dallas, took advantage of the mistakes, that the Hurricanes were making. Yeah, penalty kills stayed good, but we've seen many times where Dallas will take advantage of mistakes that they make. We've seen it many times, against the Stars. We've seen it this season. Go back to that game in Dallas. The bad play in the neutral zone. Dallas took advantage of that. Dallas takes advantage of mistakes in this game as well. They got lucky, with um, their penalty kill coming up the way it did, with those 2 penalties they took in the final 5 of the second period. They got really lucky there. And that's not always going to happen, and you're not always gonna be guaranteed a win, and this is pretty evident that mistakes will cost you when you play a good team, and, that's something that I'm looking at going down the road into the playoffs. you know, this is the kind of thing that will happen in the playoffs. You're not going to have, a game like against Arizona a couple weeks ago where, yeah, they made mistakes, but the Hurricanes were clearly the better team there and still came away with the win. It's not going to happen in the playoffs. In the playoffs, you're going to have something like this where that other team is going to take advantage of those mistakes and they're going to get the win, plain and simple. But it the game is behind us now. It's time to just look forward to what's going on next for the Hurricanes this week, and we will do that right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, the halfway point of the season has just passed, and regardless of where the Hurricanes are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and a special daily fantasy hockey because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey. And to win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Svechnikov, Natchez, Jarvis, or whoever will record more or less their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minuses, and more in a given game. So you heard me, Canes fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code Locked On NHL and you'll get $100 match. And you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL for up to $100 match on your first deposit. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Now, getting back into the week ahead for the Hurricanes, they have the Minnesota Wild tonight. This is their second game in a 3-game road trip, and I'm definitely looking. I'm definitely looking for them to bounce back in this game. Plain and simple, they've lost 2 straight at this point. Again, we will dive into um, the game against Buffalo in the next episode, but they have the Wild tonight, and then the Columbus Blue Jackets on the 29th. Leap day. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting matchup because I always say Metro matchups are always going to be tough because it doesn't matter where these teams are in the standings. It really doesn't. These teams always play each other really, really, really tough. So these are definitely 2 games that are going to be interesting for the Hurricanes. And then on Saturday, March 2nd, they have the Winnipeg Jets at home. That's a matinee game as well at 12:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be an interesting one, folks. But like just this week ahead, it's going to be an important week for them. I think they kind of already got off to a bad start in that game against Buffalo. So being able to bounce back tonight against the Minnesota Wild is going to be big. We will talk about that episode later on or that game in an episode later on today. Excuse me, but looking at this week, I wonder what's going to happen this week. Obviously, you got the games, of course, and then practice, of course. But you look at some of the guys that are on the shelf right now. Jalen Chatfield. Are we going to get updates on him? Probably. Yeah, I believe it was in yellow no contact last practice. So are we going to see him coming back? Obviously, it's not going to be against Minnesota. I don't think. I think if anything, it would probably be at home against Winnipeg. I think that would be the most likely. Maybe you see him against Columbus on Thursday. Maybe. I don't know. Um, do we get any updates on Antti Ranta? Haven't really heard anything at all about him. So do you hear anything there? Or at least a timetable of when he'll come back. Like, oh yeah, he'll be back in a couple weeks. Yeah, we haven't even heard that. It's literally been nothing since he went out. But and then Freddie Anderson, what kind of updates are we going to be there? Um, it's going to be a very interesting week to see what happens. Obviously, trade deadline is coming up as well, so maybe we start hearing some rumblings about that of potential moves that could be made. I don't know. I think it's going to be a very interesting week for the Hurricanes, both on and off the ice. I think off ice may be a bit more interesting this week just because of the deadline fast approaching. Are they going to do anything, or is it going to be a typical, we like our group, let's make this random deadline move and call it a day? Is it going to be something like that, or are we going to start hearing about like, oh, they might actually try to do something this year, rather than the same we like our group shtick that we've been getting year after year? I don't know, but we're just going to have to wait and see on this stuff. And as I mentioned, we will be talking about the game against the Sabres and the upcoming game against the Minnesota Wild in episodes coming out later on today. So be on the lookout for those. And make sure you are following along on social media at LO_Hurricanes, myself at Jared Ellis _96. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave a comment down there as far as what you want the Hurricanes to do at the trade deadline. Let me know. And as always, folks, let's go Canes.